What's up, everybody? This is Aaron Wojciechowski. Welcome to the first ever edition of the Horror Lives Here podcast. Tonight, I'm bringing on a very special guest, a friend of mine named Matt Spease, who is from Arkansas. He has his own production company called Dark Knight Films, writes, directs, acts in his own movies. And so I'm going to bring him on right now. We're just going to talk about his career, and hopefully you all have fun and enjoy it. What's up, Matt? How you doing, man?
Good. Glad to be on.
Thank you for coming on. First guest, first episode, and we got
honored.
ton of we got. Well, I appreciate that. We got a ton of films to talk about, man. You got a. I went on your IMDb earlier, and you just got a huge amount of movies 20, 26, 27 movies that you directed, plus a TV show that you do, the Evil Deeds TV series as well. We'll talk about that. So why don't we get started with just you kind of telling us how you got involved, like what got you involved in wanting to write and direct movies?
Well, easily that started with watching movies like Halloween back in the day and seeing movies like Friday the 13th and all of those kind of films. And even to a lesser extent, the older movies, the Universal monster films and stuff, those made me appreciate horror and made me, but basically Halloween with the cinematography by Dean Cundy and the way John Carpenter shot it and the stylistic feel that they put to it, that just made me want to do exactly what they did. In fact, before I even started writing actual scripts, that was my template. I looked up the Halloween scripts and the Friday the 13th scripts, and I looked at how they were formatted, and that's how I learned how to write a script in script format, was reading their scripts and everything. So, because back whenever I first started writing scripts, you didn't have things like Final Draft, which helps you to format it properly and everything. We had to figure it out on the fly, So whenever I started writing my own scripts, one of the first ones I actually wrote, I did a couple of little feeling out process kind of things with a camcorder way back in the day, kind of like I've heard about how Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell started out their stuff. They just made their own little videos and shit and having fun, just goofing off with their friends and everything, honing their skills that way. That's what I did first, and then I decided to finally just form a company and actually start, trying to make my own movies and everything. First one that I actually wrote that was that actual film that I tried to do was Evil on Queen Street. So we wrote the script on that one. Eventually, it got rewrote and everything. We ended up making a version of it that is out there now, the 2008 version. It's out now. The initial versions that we did, it was a short film that I did, and there was a 2002 experimental version of the film that I did. Back then, we weren't even called Dark Knight Films. We were called Matt Spease Productions, which doesn't have the same ring as Dark Knight Films. So eventually, when I did Chameleon Killer in 2003, that's when I changed the name of the company to, from Matt Spease Productions to Dark Knight Films. And that was basically our big tentpole film. Ended up being the Chameleon Killer. That was the one that jumped it, into just making this happen. So
yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Chameleon Killer, because that's a movie that it's the first one of your movies that I seen. So we'll give anybody that's watching a little background on you and I. Like I met you when you were doing a movie called Dark Knight, and
Hmm.
or I first started talking to you when you were doing a movie called Dark Knight. I don't guess we really met till later, but
Yeah,
I had found on my Roku a channel called Dark Knight Films, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." And then I realized that it was you, and this stuff was being shot here in Arkansas. And the first movie I watched of yours was The Chameleon Killer, which was such a fun movie, man. It's a great concept of this. It's basically Scream, but instead of a killer being Ghostface, it's a killer using instead of just saying I love horror movies, he or she takes
that
what
was
she
that was
loves
the,
in the different characters.
that was the thing. That was the thing with Scream. It had that tagline. Someone has taken their love of scary movies one step too far, and I always
Right.
thought Scream never lived up to that tagline. And I wanted to make a film that kind of did live up to that tagline because I mean, what the Chameleon Killer does in the film is really does what that tagline says. They took their love of scary movies one step too far. They started actually cosplaying as the killers and killing people.
Right.
And of
Yeah. I
course,
mean, there was
I think
a
I don't even know 2008. I don't even know if there was any cosplay going on, but I don't
it
even know
wasn't
if
as
that was a
popular
big
as it is
thing.
today.
I don't know if that was a big thing or anything. So it wasn't the term. We just had copycat was the name that we gave the killer. The killer was copycatting. Um, these movie slashers. And in fact, that was the first title of the film originally. The work print. It was called Copycat. Uh, and in that version, we even had the opening kill, which is a psycho kill. We even had it in black and white, where it looked like a psycho. It looked like a recreation of almost like Psycho, you know. Uh, and but whenever I did the Chameleon Killer, we retitled the Chameleon Killer. I changed that. I said you can't have the opening be black and white. That's going to be just too weird, you know. So I changed that and everything. So and also I cut out that initial work print. I mean, it had way too many moments where you were seeing what the killer's doing. I mean, you actually literally see the killer go into the lair, get a knife, get the certain mask that the killer's going to wear, and it's like, whoa, we want this to be a surprise later on in the movie whenever Freddy Krueger pops up, with the claw coming up behind the dude, and everything. And so it gives away that if you're going to see the killer walk in there and grab the claw hand, and then start to put on the Freddy mask, and everything, you're like, that just gives away the surprise. Don't
Right.
show too much of the killer. So I cut out a lot of the scenes, showing the Chameleon Killer preparing to become. I think I only kept a couple of shots of I think it was that one shot. I think you'll remember this shot, and it's the shot where you see the Chameleon Killer walk into the lair, and the photographer for the reporter is dead already. Her body is laying there. The killer walks past, and you see all the masks sitting there as the killer passes by the masks. And that is the only
Right.
shot that I kept. That is the only shot that I actually kept in the lair in the final film. There were many more like that in the work print, where you saw a lot more of that layer. You saw a lot more of the killer getting ready, to go kill, which it took away the mystery of the killer in a way. So I chopped some of those scenes out before the final cut of the film. I think it was a good decision.
I thought we would. At first, I was thinking we would just go in order, but I think we're going to go ahead and when we talk about these movies, like when we get to Indestructible, we'll just talk about all of them at once. So we're going to go ahead and Chameleon Killer was great. I honestly, I think I told you this before. I like Silent Vengeance probably better. The sequel to
The sequel, yeah.
The
Yeah,
sequel was
yeah.
phenomenal.
I think it's cool because you've already got these characters established. The sheriff was able to really put more into his performance because when Brian Raimi first plays the sheriff, he's this small town sheriff that hasn't been through anything,
Right.
and he this is the first big murder that's ever happened in his town since he's been sheriff. So, he's green to this kind of thing, and he hasn't been through this. By the time you get to Silent Vengeance now, that one, he is actually more, he's ready, and he's more, he will go to the, he was more, when the mayor is after him and, getting on his case in the first movie, he's more, yes, sir.
Right.
And Silent Vengeance, he's going to stand up to him. He's going to be like, no, I know what this killer can. It's almost like Brody.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, Brody. Yeah.
I mean,
because in part two, he tells them straight up. I've seen the shark.
That makes Garrus. That made Garrus a much more interesting sheriff because he's been through this. And he's got more. He puts more personality into his character than And Brian, he did a great job portraying it. A lot of people would say that his performance in Chameleon Killer was more wooden, but that was because his character was green to this stuff. He'd never been through this before. And once he's gone through it, then he was able to put more personality into his role. And it did help. It did help that my character was not the little wuss that he was in the because in the first movie I played Mitch Phillips, who was this geeky, nerdy police profiler who he's not even a hero. Every time he encounters the Chameleon Killer, he gets his ass handed to him. So he's like, he's so in Silent Vengeance, I actually play that character's father, and he's much more. He's a badass bounty hunter that's used to hunting something like this down. So you got him teaming up with the sheriff. So you got two people that know what they're doing.
Right.
In there, so it gave it a completely different dynamic there. And then the killer herself, Chameleon Killer, it's not the same. That character evolved as well.
I was going to say I didn't want to give, without giving too much away for anybody who maybe watched this that hasn't seen it yet, but she was phenomenal. Right. She was phenomenal in that part. I really, really liked her performance as the killer, as the Chameleon Killer, especially towards the end. Again, without giving anything away, but you get to see her. You get to see her. So she was so good in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, evolving those characters in that first, it helps putting the characters out in that first movie, and then when you get to this, most sequels don't do that. They don't take advantage of, you've got the established characters, use them. Some of these horror sequels are so stupid that they kill off these key characters right at the beginning of a movie. Well, one that I can easily name off is Halloween 4 is like my favorite Halloween film of all time.
Right.
I know that's probably you're thinking, no, what? Halloween's a classic. Yeah. But some of the performances.
It doesn't surprise me. I know how you feel.
I know you well enough. The original Halloween. I love John Carpenter's direction. I love Dean Cundy's cinematography in it.
Right.
But some of the acting in that one was just, not so hot. So 4, I think, had some of the best acting, some of the best writing, even small characters that just appear in one scene are given moments to have really good lines and everything, and make an impact in that film. And then they disappoint me with Halloween 5, because you take a character like Rachel Carruthers, who was an awesome final heroine in that film, and then they kill her off right at the beginning of uh, Halloween 5, and it's like, why did you do that? You know, that, and then we have to follow Tina. Oh,
I'm never sensible if I can help it.
right. So, I mean, 5 I loved for Dr. Loomis, because Donald Pleasance was the man. That's why I hate these new movies, these new Halloween movies, because they just shit all over the legacy of the legend that is Donald Pleasance. I just, Jamie Lee Curtis was not the star of those films. So, making these new movies and ignoring the other sequels, just makes it like, oh, well, Donald Pleasance wasn't that important to the story. Let's get rid of him. Let's replace him with Jamie Lee Curtis. It doesn't work for me. That's a sad replacement for Donald Pleasance right there. So, and that's the kind of thing that I didn't want to see in my sequel, or any of my sequels. Whenever I tried to make a sequel, any of my sequels that I've ever tried to do, first thing I want to first one will establish the characters, and then you want to take those characters that you've established and you want to move them forward and keep them interesting and evolve them as characters. It's the reason whenever I did Indestructible, I know you're a big fan of that series.
Yes, I am.
When I did Indestructible, I mean, it started off just my own pseudo remake of Silent Rage, and I did my own thing with it. Of course, I didn't try to make it exactly like Silent Rage, and I wanted, the first thing I wanted to do with Indestructible was I wanted to, because Silent Rage really just doesn't give the Kirby character a lot of evolution as a character. It doesn't give you reason to wonder, why is he doing this? Why is he snapped? Why is he going crazy? It's just, he wakes up, answers the phone, calls his doctor, says he's losing it, and then he goes on a killing spree and gets taken down by Chuck Norris.
Right.
On mine, I was like, I want to show how this guy is going into the madness, and that's why I did the whole girlfriend breaks up with him. He loses his job. He gets threatened to be evicted from his the place he's staying at. I mean, 3 big things happen to him back to back, and he's already mentally unbalanced and has to take medicine to keep sane. So that just pushes the guy over the edge. And I think that's a much better explanation of why he snaps than just having the character wake up and call his doctor and say, I'm losing it, and then just kill people. So
those movies are so much fun. And that's the thing. Like, you and I have talked about this in the past. I don't necessarily watch movies to have my world changed or any other crap. I watch them to be entertained and to have fun. And the Indestructible movies, from like the opening 5 minutes of the first one, I felt so bad for this guy, because I'm like, what a day from hell. And then all of a sudden, he just snaps and he goes on this brutal killing spree. And honestly, there was a couple of people he killed there where I was like, well, I have a hard time blaming them.
They deserved it.
But then when he gets shot and killed, I'm like, okay, so I mean, I'd seen the trailer and I talked to you, so I knew that wasn't the end of it. But when he came back, the movie just became more and more and more fun. And it's that Kirby character was great. I mean, he was. I've seen Silent Rage. I love Silent Rage, but this Kirby was so much different than that one.
Yeah, then that's the first thing I wanted to do when I changed. you're making your own version of it. You got to make it your own. And that's the first thing I wanted to do. And I wanted to humanize him and make him where people are going to feel for him and know we can understand why he snapped. This guy, we might not snap because we're normal people. This guy, he's got mental problems already. So all this stuff happening to him, we can see how he, would snap. That would happen, and everything. And the sequel, when John Vasilio and I were talking about doing that, when I told him, the first thing I told him was, I don't want you to write Kirby as the silent killer like he was in the first film. I want you to evolve this character. I want him to become a kind of different version of that character now. I mean, because, no spoilers to it, really. I mean, he gets his head lopped off by the end of the first film. Everyone thinks it's over. And when he comes back, he is a different version of that character because of what happened to him. It evolved him as a character because of it. So didn't help matters that the coroner and his dumb assistant decide to stick Kirby's regenerating body in the same body bag with his head. That was not a smart move.
No, it wasn't.
And when he comes back, I mean, I wanted people to be shocked because, I mean, people would be thinking, oh, he's just going to come out of that body bag and he's just going to be the same silent, violent killer that he was in the first film. So the first thing I want people to be shocked by was the scene when he returns back to the Sumner house and the British neighbor tries to stop him. And he walks up to the guy, and then you hear him talk for the first time since he was killed in the first movie, And that right there would shock some people. Holy shit, he's talking.
And I love the voice you give him too, because if I'm not mistaken, did he not get shot in the throat or something in the first one?
Yes, he got shot in the throat in there. So he wouldn't be talking, in the voice that he talked with before he was killed, after he was injected with the Mighty 35, yes, it brought him back, but that larynx was already messed up. So, when the rest of his body healed, it couldn't fully heal that. So that's what caused his voice to go from being the normal, good, sweet guy voice to the evil sounding monster voice. I loved evolving that voice too, because the only time you hear it in the original movie was when he's given the ride by Newman. And Newman asks him his name. And he doesn't say anything initially, but whenever he gets him to the location where he's as far as he's going to take Kirby turns to him and he says, "What was your name again?" And yes, and then that's when he says, "Kirby." You just barely hear it. You don't really catch how he's talking. Really, you just know, well, maybe his larynx is messed up. So yeah, that's But he never says anything the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie is more like a silent killer, like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. So. And the evolution of the eyes was one thing I wanted to do too, because his eyes are white in the original movie, and after he gets his head chopped off, I figured, well, his body would, when it's redone, his eyes change to that fiery red color due to the fact that decapitated,
Right.
So, and I really loved that look a lot better than the white eyes initially. And ironically, those eyes were originally for a werewolf that we did for an episode of Evil Meats called Moondance. I didn't get those contacts in time to shoot on that, so I had to use the white contacts like I used for Kirby for the werewolf. So when I came to, so it kind of funny that I used the Kirby contact lenses for the werewolf that I was going to use the fiery lenses for, and then the fiery lenses end up becoming Kirby's eventual eyes in all the later films. It's kind of, there's some irony in that, you know.
Right.
But yeah, when he first
says
when he walks up to the British guy, you know, he walks up to that British guy, and you know, he's like, you know, the guy's like, what the hell are you doing here? You know, he walks up to him and he's like, is this your house? I wanted people to be hearing that and be like, holy shit, Kirby just talked. You know? and he's got an attitude too, because I mean, is it your job to watch this house? And then the guy says, no, then mind your fucking business. It was like, that's the attitude that we didn't know he had from the first film, you know.
Well, he's got to be pissed off. He's got his head chopped off. He's gotten shot in the throat. I mean, by this point,
that's the other evolution of the character. That's the whole reason for Afterlife to work, is that whole movie was about him getting revenge on Kersey for decapitating. It was basically a revenge film. It wasn't really even as much a slasher film anymore as it was more a revenge film. You know, he was constructing a very intricate revenge against the man who decapitated him, you know, and everything. So it's like, that's twice. That was twice Kersey had basically killed Kirby. He's like, I'm tired of this guy. Come on after me. You know,
that's one thing I wanted to talk about was speaking of Kersey, the cast for these movies, especially the Indestructible movies. You had an incredible cast all the way through the series, starting with J. Michael LaFont playing Kersey in basically all four movies. He at least makes an appearance in all four movies, and he was great. And he kind of, at least again from a fan's perspective, not necessarily I'm not a movie maker or anything, but it just looked like he progressed even as an actor. He got better in each part, each role of that series. He just kept getting better and better.
Yeah, and because like that's the cool thing. You can evolve that character. It's, you know, because the first film he was just a deputy, you know, and he's thrown into the thing and becoming a sheriff, you know, and he didn't want it initially, you know, and then by the time Afterlife comes along, he's embraced it now, you know. He's finally, you know, accepting, you know, okay, I'm the sheriff now, you know, I'll do this, you know. And then, of course, the monster that he thought he vanquished returns to make his life a living hell and start, you know, attacking people he loves and people that he works with, you know, fellow law officers, you know, and everything. And that's, you know, it's something different, you know, that, you know, I didn't want carbon copy of Indestructible for Indestructible Afterlife. You know, that's why whenever I talked to John, I said, I want you to write him. I want you to evolve him. I want you to evolve Kersey. I want these characters. That's why I gave, you know, I told him, give Kersey a family. Give him a wife, an ex-wife that he's, you know, kind of away. You know, that's why we didn't see her in the first film. You know, it's, you know, he's away from her. You know, they're not really together anymore. You know, but he's wanting to get closer to her for their little girl that they have. You know, so, and then introducing the character of the daughter, Stephanie. You know, in there. It becomes an integral part to the future films as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jade was great. Your father had a small role in the movie as your boss. He's the one that fired you at the beginning of the movie, or fired Kirby at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And then as the series went on, you had Amy Lynn Woodall in the movie. You had Lauren Lazane, I believe is her name, playing Stephanie. You had Emmy Mullen playing Rachel Brothers' role.
She when she showed up on the set, I told her, you got a really good look for playing this character. I told her about the character. That I said, now you're going to be playing two different versions of this character because scripts, uh, Reckoning and No Place to Hide were written simultaneously. John had wrote them basically simultaneously, and we basically shot them basically at the same time, both movies. So I told her whenever I'd sent her both scripts, and I said, all right, so you're going to be playing one version of her in Reckoning, and then I hope you're going to be able to handle it because you're going to be playing a completely different version of that character in No Place to Hide. And she shows up, for Rachel initially, and I showed her a picture of Ellie Cornell wearing the little gray sweater that she wore in Halloween 4. And I said, "Do you have anything similar to this? This kind of a sweater that you could wear as a character?" And she sent me a picture of the shirt that she was, the sweater that she had. I was like, "That looks great. That'll probably work really good." And when she shows up on set, I was like, "Damn, she looks a lot like Ellie Cornell." I was like, "This is going to work really well. She's my version of Rachel Carruthers here. This is awesome." And her and Lauren had such great chemistry together. I mean, they worked so well together. It's so touching, the relationship between the two. The way they act with each other. And how protective Emmy was as the character, toward her. I mean, she basically goes toe to toe with Kirby a couple of times in the movie, and she doesn't hold back. She tries her best to beat him.
So. As the series goes on, it's shocking what happens to those girls because they're so lovable and likable in part 2 in Afterlife, and then by No Place to Hide, let's just say they're not very lovable or likable anymore.
They evolved so good. That's the thing I was worrying about. With Emmy, I was like, I don't know if you're going to be able to handle this other version of this. Because I knew she could play the sweet, version of the character, but who knew that she could play the opposite side of the spectrum of that character? When it came to No Place to Hide, and I mean, Reckoning is very much Lauren's movie. As Stephanie. That's Stephanie's film, basically. She steals the show in Reckoning, to me. But No Place to Hide, that was basically Rachel. That was basically Emmy Mullins' big star moment. I mean, anytime she's on screen, she steals the show, And she just, I'm just so happy to have got to have them play those roles. They were so great. The same way with Jade. I mean, Jade was so good as his role. I knew whenever I first met him on Indestructible, whenever we first worked with each other, because we had worked with each other in something before, but he didn't play that big of a role. So I didn't know if he could handle that kind of a role. But I gave him a shot, and he knocked it out of the park. And then by the time Afterlife comes along, I mean, he knocks it even bigger out of the park. And he beats the living shit out of me in that one fight scene.
One of my favorite scenes of Afterlife is the phone call where he's sitting there drinking in his house and Kirby's at like a kitchen table and calls him on the phone, and he just slowly starts to realize.
Yeah, that's where I evolved the voice. I was like, that was how I came up with the voice, because I was like, okay, I want Kirby to talk this certain way, and I want people to be thinking he sounds real similar to somebody that I know that voice. I know how he, that talk. That sounds very familiar to me. And then by the time you get to that phone call and Kirby says that one line, and he asks him, Kersey asks Kirby, what do you want? And he says, how about a game? And that's when the people would be like, that's who he sounds like. Jigsaw. Right. That's what I want, because I wanted that line in there just so that, because I told John to write that line into the script. I said, write that line in there. That way, when I do this voice throughout the rest of the movie, people will be like, where have I heard that voice before? Kirby talks similar to somebody, it sounds really familiar. And then whenever I say that line, that's where it clicks in most people's mind when they're watching it. They're like, that's who he sounds like, Jigsaw. But yeah, the conversation, I love how that worked out, because his reactions, the shock on his face when he realizes that Kirby is still alive, and everything, and he's out for revenge against him, it's just that is a pretty good moment. Even without that, how about a game line, it's still a great moment for the characters,
So are we going to get another one? Is there a plan to do another Indestructible, or is for it?
No, there's going to be another one. It's going to be called Indestructible Hell to Pay. Hell to Pay. And with Kirby, that's probably a literal sense.
So I think I've told you this story before, but the first time I ever met you there was a movie that we did together, which I'll get to here in a minute, called Queen Cobra, that I got to have a really small part in. But I walked up to your door the first time to meet you to go shoot the one little scene I'm in, and I'm like almost scared because all I think of is Kirby. I'd seen the first two Indestructibles by this point. Like I said, I was supposed to do Dark Knight, and I didn't get to be a part of it. So I got to be a part of Queen Cobra, and I'm walking up to your front door to shoot my scene, and I knock on the door, and I'm like, who's going to answer the door? Is it going to be a nice guy, or is it going to be Satan himself? I didn't know. Because all I'd see at that point is Kirby, and Kirby was and then you talked, and like when your normal voice you're talking in now, and I'm like, okay, he's not crazy, he's not psychotic, I'm not gonna get shot or stabbed, and he doesn't sound like Kirby, so we're good.
That's what I usually get too. I mean, most people watch the movies and they usually see the characters I'm playing. Like I think it was the mother to one of my actors. I can't think of the name of them right now, but I meet her and I walk in there. And she sees me and she's like, "Wow, you're a lot shorter than you look on camera on the film. When you're on film, you look big." I said, I never claimed to be a big guy, but I guess portraying a character and doing this kind of a voice, I guess, portrays him as being, he's a bigger guy. And I imagine that's what you saw whenever wow, he's actually quite small. I didn't think he was going to be that small.
I wasn't going to say that because some people could be offended by that, even though it's not meant to be offensive. But I wasn't going to say that. But yeah, my first thought was he talks normal, and he's short enough that I think I could. My legs are long enough; I could probably outrun him if I had to. But then by the end of the night, like I was there, we shot for what 10 minutes maybe for that one little walk up scene that I did,
Yeah,
and then
we shot. Yeah, we shot for 10 minutes on that, and then we hung out for like an hour and a half
yeah,
just talking.
yeah, just talking. So
Yep.
all right, we may come back to Indestructible later. Let's. Did we talk about Evil on Queen Street? I believe we did. The sequel came out in 2017, Mark of Death, which we kind of mentioned earlier off air.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah.
we'll talk a little bit about Mark of Death.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark of Death was like it's the direct. Well, we did two short films that were like prequels to the Evil on Queen Street series that you can watch on IMDb for free, called Desperado and Pray for the Hunters, which those films were to evolve, give a little bit of a prequel to what happened, how the events that led into Evil on Queen Street happened, and everything. So, you learn all the things that you hear things mentioned in the original Evil on Queen Street, like Nick being in prison for a while and he gets out, and everything, that he was a thief, and then in Desperado, you actually had that. It was shown. A lot of that was shown and showed how he was eventually caught and went to prison, and everything. And then Pray for the Hunters did a little bit of an evolution of the character of Alexia and everything, from the first film. Whereas this was basically it was a continuation of Evil on Queen Street, but it also kept little elements from mostly Desperado. It didn't keep a lot of elements from Pray for the Hunters, because Pray for the Hunters didn't have Nick Wilson in it. Nick Wilson was in prison at that point during that film. So, but most of the stuff that you see in Mark of Death, it was like a remake. We have little moments that are like remakes of scenes that happened in Desperado for flashback scenes and stuff. And I had to do that because when we did the short film of Desperado, I was really skinny, thin, didn't have a lot of bulk to me. I probably weighed about 95 pounds. And by the time we did Mark of Death, I was up to 140 pounds. So I looked quite different and a lot fuller and bigger in body than I did back when I played Nick Wilson in Desperado. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to reshoot those scenes. I can't just reuse these scenes. And then all of a sudden, when we cut to the Nick Wilson now, geez, what happened to him? He got big.
Steroids.
The big change in body size, So we reshot a lot of that for Mark of Death, and I like that just because I was able to recreate a lot of those moments and give them a different feel and make them a little bit better acted, because Desperado was made back when we didn't have as professional of actors as we have now. We just had basically people that were friends of mine or something that were, playing roles as favors to me, So the acting
Right.
in some of those earlier films, like Evil on Queen Street and even the original Chameleon Killer, and everything. But the acting in them is not exactly as good as these later films, So it gave me a chance to improve on some of that stuff. Some of those scenes that happened in Desperado that I get to recreate at the beginning for the flashback scenes. That was fun, because I actually got to put a little bit more meat in those roles, and then the introduction of Anthony playing the Eric Denham role. I mean, Anthony Baker was just so good as the villain in that role. He's such a great actor and everything, and he's, and him acting alongside Alex Lindbergh as Lulu. I mean, they had such great chemistry together in there and everything, and you would never thought it, you never thought casting wise that getting these characters in there, these actors in those roles, that they would have the chemistry that they had. They did. I mean, they worked so well off of each other. I'm sure you probably laughed at the scene when they first noticed the tattoo on them, on their, the mark of death on their bodies, and he wakes up and he's like, "What the hell?" And she goes, "Oh, you got a tattoo. When did you get that?" And then she looks on her wrist and sees one on her, and she goes, "Oh, I have one too. We have matching tattoos." And he looks at her like, "You're insane." Because, and it's funny because because before when we did Mark of Death, there was no live action version of Harley Quinn. There was none. So when Alex played Lulu, she was bringing to life probably basically the first ever variation of Harley Quinn style character. And she did so good in that role, playing that kind of ditzy little, henchman girl to the bad guy that's just so in love with the bad guy. She's willing to kill for him. She's willing to do anything for him. But, and she's just as nuts as he is, and everything. It's like, she was so good in that role, which just shows what a good actress she was. I mean, later on, she ended up playing, a couple of cops in Afterlife, Indestructible Afterlife, and Then the Night Comes, and you would have never thought Lulu when she's playing those characters. Those characters were totally different from Lulu, it just shows how good of an actress, Alex Lindbergh is,
My favorite scene in that whole movie was because it was so over the top and so violent, it reminded me of RoboCop. And I'm talking about the scene where, of course, Nick gets. Sorry if we spoil it for anybody, but then at this point, the movie's been out for 10 years. So, but right. in order to talk about it, we have to kind of spoil a little bit. But Nick gets his male form murdered, and it is the most violent, over the top, like it just goes on forever. It feels like this poor guy's just never going to be put out of his misery. Like 5-6 different people get shots in on him.
Yeah, it's like, and at the time I had not met. That was the first time I got to meet Rick Viper, playing the character of Dwayne that he plays in there, and that was the first role he played for me. And he eventually goes on to become the sheriff and freaking. Then the Night Comes down the road, becomes a major player in our films, but we weren't thinking that back when we did Mark of Death. I mean, he's just playing one of the henchmen to Eric, the knife expert, He's the guy that stabs Nick in the hand, and then laughs about it.
That whole scene just, from the time Nick walked into the room until everybody walked out, Nick's laying there dead. I don't know how long it lasted in minutes wise, but it felt like an eternity because Nick just kept. First, Nick walks in being kind of a badass and thinking he's just gonna. He walks in with the intention of telling these guys, "No, I don't want to be a part of your group" or whatever, and then he shows no fear, which is brave, but also kind of crazy because he's surrounded by like 6 or 7 badasses with weapons and shit. And then he basically kicks their ass for quite some time there before they get the better of him. And then the numbers just catch up, and once the numbers catch up, it is a never-ending. I like to think of it as the Devil's Rejects like torture scene mixed with mixed with RoboCop. Mixed with the murder of Peter Weller in RoboCop, combined with the Fireflies being tortured in the house. It's just nonstop, violent, vicious, angry, but ultimately badass because Nick comes back. You know, it's
yeah. I want it to be that way. I want it to be that way because number one, you're already invested in the character if you've already seen the previous short films and the other movie. You know, you've already invested in the Nick Wilson character. You know, you know this guy. You know he's a pretty badass character. I mean, he took out the demon for Christ's sakes. You know, so. I was like, you know, if he's going to get killed in this, I want it to be a worthy death. You know, I don't want him going down like Kirk in Star Trek, the way they did.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, or Han Solo in Star Wars, how they did him. I mean, no.
Or Rachel Carruthers.
We are not. Right. We're not doing him that way. He's going to go. You know, he's going to try and fight. You know, the numbers are going to, like you said, the numbers are going to get too great for him. You know, he is just a regular, normal guy at the end of the day. You know, even though he is supposed to be a badass. You know? And when they finally get him, they're just not going to let up. They're just going to keep going. You know, until he's gone. You know,
it's another one of those situations where. You do a good job of this in all your movies, where you make people feel sorry for this character before you made him feel sorry. You know, I felt sorry for Kirby, but Nick Wilson at the beginning of the movie, he's with his girlfriend. He seems happy. He seems content. He wants out. He loves his girlfriend. They got this really cute, you know, scene on the couch in the living room together. Everything, when he proposes to her. And everything just seems like it's his life's turning, or his life's going in the right direction. He's finally happy. He just wants to be left alone. And then suddenly this guy comes up and offers him something. He turns it down, but then it's like, you know, he has to go tell this guy to his face he's out. He doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. He doesn't go there. At least I don't think he goes there with the intention of doing anything more than saying, just leave me alone. I want to live my life. And then suddenly everybody just becomes complete dicks and starts, you know, running their mouth to him, and he can't, you know, he can't just not defend himself. So I felt so bad for that guy, not just because of the torture he was going through, because he didn't want to be there. He just wanted to be left the hell alone, and these guys were refused to leave him alone.
Right. Yeah, and you've already got the sort of the emotional connection to him already from the previous films that you've seen. You know, most people going into Mark of Death are going in it knowing that this is a sequel to, you know, Evil on Queen Street. You already know this character, you know. So when you get to meet him in this, you're like, oh wow, Nick's finally happy. You know, this is cool. You know, oops, there goes his happy life. And then when he, you know, when God and the devil, the demon, give him the chance to either go through the gates of heaven or go back for revenge, you knew what choice Nick Wilson was going to take.
Oh yeah, and rightly so, because these people, like, you know, the few in Indestructible kind of deserved it, but then after a while, Kirby's just killing basically innocent people. But these people deserved it. They deserved whatever the hell happened to them. They deserved it because they were just some of the nastiest, meanest people.
It's not really a slasher style film. It's more of a Death Wish style of a film. It's more the revenge. You know, just straight up revenge. And the people that are getting killed, you know, you're not feeling any sympathy for them. You're like, they deserve it. They're getting what they deserve. You know, you're rooting for the guy killing the people. You know, or in this case,
the girl. Yes. Well, spoiler alert: Nick Wilson comes back as a female. Fairly attractive female too.
The biggest surprise to him as it is to you.
There was a scene, and forgive me because I forgot the characters' names, but when she walks in the first time as Nick, and one of the characters knows you, knows who you are, and
Uh-huh.
is basically trying to tell the other guy to, shut up because you don't know who this is. This isn't who you think it is, and it's just I can't remember the scene fully. I just remember laughing my tail off watching that scene because she walks in again, a fairly attractive female, but the guy keeps calling her Nick, and so the other guy's
Uh-huh.
like, or either guy or girl, whatever, is like, wait a minute, Nick. Yes, I'm telling you, this is not a female. This is a guy.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, Mark of Death was fun just because it was, because at that point I'd done basically a lot of slasher films. We had Evil on Queen Street, we had Chameleon Killer, we had uh, Silent Vengeance. So all we were doing basically was slasher films. So being able to go in there and do uh, a Death Wish style revenge film, that was something different, something cool, that I wanted to do. I wanted to show that we are not just a horror company. We can do something unique and different, And eventually that led to us doing other movies like, Queen Cobra, which is a sort of like a lot like Mark of Death. It's sort of a revenge film, all but even more supernatural because the revenge is done by a supernatural creature.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one here in a little bit because that's another one besides Indestructible I want to really talk a lot about because again that one holds a special spot in my heart because I got to have a 5-second cameo in it or whatever.
Yeah.
and because the movie was fun, it was a unique story. But looking at your IMDb list, you are a busy man from like 2017 to now. I mean, movie at 2017, Mark of Death came out, and then 2018 you had 2 movies come out. 2019 you had 2 come out. 2020 you had 3 different movies come out, and then last year you had Snowy Night, which is one I've gotten to see. It was really fun to watch. So then the Evil Deed series too. You've been a busy guy. Like, you ever take time off?
Only around this time of the year it was, around the winter time is when it's like nobody's going to want to come to shoot on anything around this time of the year. So I usually go into hibernation around this time of the year. But now is about the time when I start going again, and that's what we're actually doing now. We're in the process of getting ready to start filming some more stuff now again. For both.
Awesome, good deal.
For both season 2 of Evil Deeds and for the movies and stuff. So
awesome.
And I'll talk more about them after we finish going through these movies.
Right. So 2018, Then the Night Comes. You mentioned that one earlier a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about that one for a little while.
That one, me and my nephew, Ernie Jenkins, we came up with this idea of this story, and we didn't write a script for it. We just came up with a general idea of what it was and everything. And I went to John Vessalio, and I had him write an early draft of it, and he wrote it. We were going to go and let another filmmaker direct it. I sent him the script, and he wanted to change the movie. He's a director out of California, so he was wanting to make the movie more a gang kind of a thing, like a bunch of gangs shooting each other and shit like that, the drug gangs and that kind of shit, I'm like, that has nothing to do with what this was. This was basically a slasher film. Why are you turning this into a, weird, so as soon as he tried to rewrite it and sent me versions of it, what he was planning on doing. I took it away from him, and I said, "We'll try and go to another director." And within a within a few years after that, I wasn't wanting to direct it because I had other stuff on my plate and I was trying to do other stuff, And after a while, I was like, I'm available to do this now, so I'll go ahead and direct this one. My big thing with it, though, was I wanted that film to be the first film as a feature that I would be directing that I would not play a role in at all. I would just direct. And I'm pretty proud that we stayed true to that. I did not play a role in that film, period. I just directed it. Yeah. And John eventually, after I brought back the script from that other writer who wanted to change the whole idea of what the film was, I took it back to John, and I told John Basilio, I said, all right, now I want you to go back to the basics, and I want you to add in some more stuff with the character of Julie, give her a lot more dynamics, more stuff that people can actually get into that character and her, and care about her as a character. And the same way with the sheriff, I wanted Sheriff Hagen to have a lot of really good character development in there, as a character. Because basically, like the first, you've seen the film, so and a lot of you have. Watching this might have already seen the film. So, first part of the film is pretty much Julie's movie. It's pretty much Holly Petty's film. Up until the first few murders, and then Hagen comes in as a character, and it's kind of between those two. It's a seesaw between them. You're getting some screen time from Holly as Julie, and you're getting some screen time with Rick as Sheriff Hagen. So he's a late comer in the film, but basically Hagen kind of steals the show in that film once he does come in the frame. And he's a totally different type of a sheriff than what Sheriff Garris was in community cover films. Even in Silent Vengeance, Hagen is a totally different type of a sheriff than him. And that's what you want. You don't want your sheriff characters in these slasher films to be, oh, that's the same kind of character. He's written the same way as this character.
It gets boring.
Yeah, you want him to have his own kind of personality, and that's what Rick was able to bring to the table. As like I said, the first time I met him was on American Death, so I didn't know if he was going to be able to pull off this role of. Because I originally offered the role of the sheriff to Phil Eoris, who played the demon in the Evil on Queen Street and American Death. And he eventually, he's like, I don't want to. I don't think I'm right to play a sheriff. So I was like,
and Rick has that look though. He looks like he could be a sheriff that you really don't want to mess with. He's kind of broad shouldered and got the bald head, and he just looks like a small town sheriff that you won't want to mess with.
Yeah. Yeah, and we put the cowboy hat on him to make him look, like he's a tough badass you don't want to mess with. He's the sheriff you don't want to screw with. He's totally different than, because Garris was more laid back, even though he did get a little bit more, tougher in Silent Vengeance, as we pointed out. He was never like Hagen, Garris wasn't. So. Hagen really stands out as a really cool sheriff that cares about the people in his town. Whenever he comes to a murder scene, he sees something that's happened. He's always got that look, like trying to figure out who's doing this, and he just really wants to protect the people in his town, you know, and everything.
So let's go back to something you were talking about earlier. Like
Uh-huh.
you have acted and directed in a ton of stuff. So as a
Mhm.
director, how do you balance that? Like how do you balance if you're acting and directing in the same thing? How do you do that exactly?
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to do Then the Night Comes the way I did it, where I wasn't playing anything in it, because I wanted to. It was hard in Evil on Queen Street, Mark of Death. Well, it was a little easier in Mark of Death because I kind of got to do that in Mark of Death because I'm only in it for like the first 20 minutes, and then my character's dead, and then I just get to direct through most of that movie. And it was great on that movie. On Mark of Death, in those moments where I wasn't playing Nick Wilson, when Haley is playing Nicole, it was like I felt, yes, I can focus on my shots. I can focus on how I'm doing this. I can focus on my angles. I felt like Dean Cundy. It's like, I can do this right. I can do this the way I want. Instead of having to rely on other people to film it for me while I'm on camera. Uh, I can actually be the camera person and make sure everything is how I want it. And that's a cool thing. Uh, it Now later we did get really talented people behind the camera other than myself, to where like Buddy Campbell, uh, B. Dwayne Ledbetter, and multiple other people that it's hard to name them all. You know, C.J. Bernard is one of them that comes to mind. Not only is he a great actor on camera, uh, but I mean, he knows how to get behind the camera and film some stuff and really get good angles on it and everything. So having people like that uh, really helped. Whatever I did jump back into in those later Indestructible movies, because for a while I was just doing it, where I was just directing and I wasn't acting. We did Then the Night Comes. That was the first movie we did that with, and then after that we did Dark Knight, and I'm not playing a role in that one either. I was just directing the whole movie. So you know, when I got back into it and I'm playing Kirby on camera and everything, I wanted people to be able to focus and get the shots that I would shoot, and I have to rely on them to do it, and I was fortunate enough to get all those people, like B. Dwayne Ledbetter, Buddy Campbell, C.J. Bernard, Bailey Freeman. She's another one that she's a great actress. Not only is she a great actress, but she's really good behind the camera too. She can shoot some good shots. So even in Queen Cobra, I wanted to limit my acting. That's why I only played the smaller role of Reese in that film, because number one, I wanted that character to make a bigger impact, and he's not going to be able to make a bigger impact if he's on camera all the time. You're going to take away the character's mystique, But if he only comes in when people need to know about these creatures, then he's a much more important character in the story, you know. So
I I feel really bad because earlier when we were doing talk about indestructible movies, I started mentioning these actors and actresses that were appeared in the franchise, and I completely forgot about V. Dwayne Ledbetter, who played the mayor. He was great in those movies, and I just for some reason that character
the
completely slipped
mayor,
my mind
yeah, he's
when I
playing
was
the
going
mayor.
through it. But he was so good in that role because he played, in my opinion, it came off as sort of this sleazy politician guy that it was kind of hard
Right.
to it was hard to like him, but he did such a good job in the movie. Like if that was what he was trying to do, was be hard to like. He did a great job.
And then by the time you get to uh, No Place to Hide. There's that moment, and I know the moment you know what I'm talking about here. There's that moment where he actually shows some emotion, and he shows, oh, he is a real person, and you're like,
Yeah.
wow. And Dwayne nailed that one, that part of the role too. He makes you all of a sudden, you thought he was just this arrogant, dick the whole rest of the series, and then all of a sudden you're like, I actually feel for him now a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes that's hard for an audience member sometimes to deal with that, because it's like, I don't want to like this person, I don't want to feel sorry for him, but I'm human, so I do.
Right. I remember you telling me after you saw that one, you were like, man, that one scene was hard for me to watch because I've hated this mayor for all this time, and that scene really made me feel sorry for him.
So I apologize if he happens to see this. I apologize for forgetting your character. I did not completely forget him. When Matt mentioned your name, I'm like, oh crap, I got to mention him.
You didn't remember until I mentioned him. It's a great camera, man. Yeah, he not only played he not only played that mayor so well in those Indestructible movies, but he also, a lot of that, that final clash scene with Kirby in Afterlife, the final clash scene with Kirby, CJ's character, and the I'm having a brain fart on her name right now. The other detective, Alice Hume, I know the character's name, but I usually don't do that.
We're human, it happens.
Yeah, but during that final fight, and also with Kersey as well, some of the shots that Dwayne shot, he basically shot a lot of that, because I'm on screen doing a lot of the stuff in there, between a lot of that scenes, what you see in there, it's shot by either Buddy Campbell or V. Dwayne Ledman, and both of them, combined. I mean, they were so good at what they did filming those scenes and everything. It just, they get in close on shots, when you're seeing the fights and stuff, and like when Alice Hume is using her martial arts abilities on Kirby and just kicking the hell out of his face. I mean, Buddy gets some really good angles on it where you can fully see that stuff really good. I mean, it looks, and she's not really hitting me. Everybody knows that this is acting, but the way he shot it, I mean, you watch that, you would swear she's really kicking me in the face a bunch of times there. Now, saying that, those scenes with Jade fighting with Kirby and attacking and fighting with me, I mistakenly I told Jade, because he was worried about that fight scene, because he's never done really a real regular fight scene like he's about to do, right. Told him, don't hold back, I want you to really go at it. So he runs, and he really tackles me and spears me to the ground. That was not fake. None of what you saw there was fake. He really whacked me, knocked me down, and then on top of that, he mounts on top of me and starts hitting across my face, and some of it he's not really hitting me, but a couple of times he really brushes my cheek pretty damn good, and he's worried about it. He's like, he kept going, thankfully. I would have hated it if he would have been doing that so good, and then he would have went, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hit you. He didn't do that. Thankfully, he kept going, and then after Dwayne says cut, I got it, I'm so sorry. I said, don't worry about it. as long as it looked good on camera, I don't care. And I went back and looked at the shot. Dwayne took the shots back and let me look at them, and I was like, "Oh, great! That's awesome! I mean, that looks like you're really connected because you did." the more the more real it looks, the better. Cool. That works. And he's still wanting to apologize to me. He's such a good guy. But I was like, don't worry about it, man. You made it look great. So
started to remind me of that story of Dolph Lundgren and Sylvester Stallone. You heard that story from Rocky IV?
Yeah,
For Lundgren and Stallone in the hospital.
He told Dolph to really waylay him, and that was a mistake. You don't realize how strong Dolph Lundgren really is, dude.
But he won't do that anymore.
No, I don't think anybody wants Dolph Lundgren to really hit them. But yeah,
I think we've gotten up now to. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was done. Go ahead.
I think we've gotten up now to the vampire movie, as I like to call it, which has two different titles. For those who don't know, the actual title is Dark Knight, and then it's Evil on Queen Street Bloodlust is what you'll find on Amazon. But this is the first time I ever. I'm on some Arkansas acting pages and whatnot, and you had made a post looking for extras for a vampire movie at a strip club in Cabot. So that was the first time you and I ever talked, was when I messaged you on Facebook about that. And Dark Knight was it. I told you 100 times I'm not a huge vampire movie fan, but I freaking love Dark Knight. And the reason I like Dark Knight is because it's not a love story kind of vampire movie like Interview with the Vampire or anything like that. It's a violent, gritty, bloody, gory vampire movie, which is why I liked it so much. So go ahead.
Yeah, he's basically. I wanted, and I thought about writing the when writing that. I thought about writing that as because this one was actually written by me and not. So many of my films that I've done have been written by John Basilio that most people think he writes everything that I do. So whenever I write something, that was by Matt. That wasn't by John. That wasn't by John. Because John did. John wrote Then the Night Comes. He wrote Indestructible, Indestructible Afterlife, Indestructible Reckoning, Indestructible No Place to Hide. He wrote multiple episodes of Evil Deeds. So, I mean, he's got the distinction of being one of my go-to writers, which he is. But I will write. I still write on my own. Most people think that I just wrote Evil on Queen Street, Million Killer, and that's it. And I just gave it up. But now I did write Dark Knight. Whenever I started writing it, I was like, I wanted. Initially, was going to do it with a Dracula, an actual Dracula, one by the name Dracula in it. And then I decided I was going to go and make it more a Fright Night style of a film with a young kid who has a neighbor, which is a vampire and everything like that. I had written a script which probably was, I would say, 75% to 80% done. And something happened to my computer at the time, and I fortunately did not back up. I did not back up that script. I didn't get a chance to, for whatever reason, and I was like, I gotta restart this script. And I was like, I'm gonna veer away from that original story now. I'm gonna go something different now. I'm actually gonna make this a a sequel to Evil on Queen Street. You know, so it became, basically the direct sequel to Mark of Death. You know, I included the Nicole character. I included the Damien Cruz character. And I wanted to introduce a new detective partner to Damien Cruz in that film that will be likable, kind of humorous at moments, and be kind of a comic relief character in the film, but still has enough in the character that you're like, wow, I like this character. This character is really good. This character is really cool. You're really invested in that character, and that's where I wrote Detective Freeman. And initially, Buddy Campbell was supposed to be playing a homeless person that gets killed by Sophie early in the film. And he worked with me on Then the Night Comes, Buddy did, and he was so good as Dr. Goldberg. And then we did Afterlife, and he was so good as Dan Stevens, the coroner in there, that I was like, look, dude, I'm giving you these smaller roles, and you are so good in these smaller roles. I need to give you a major role. I'm not going to waste you away on this, person getting killed in this just one scene and not really have any dialogue. This is a waste of your talents, So I started writing the Freeman character specifically with Buddy in mind, and I started writing him as with more, because I had become really good friends with Buddy at that point, and we talked and everything, so I knew about how he is, how his personality is. So I was like, I'm going to make him really likable, just like Buddy really is in real life. I want this guy to be as close to Buddy as we can get. He's really a lovable, really good guy, and everything, with a cool sense of humor, And so that's how I wrote him, And I sent the script to Buddy, and Buddy's like, "Oh wow, damn, I'm getting a lot to do in this movie." He wasn't expecting that. I mean, he was also expecting me to write the character maybe getting killed, in it. And I wrote his character, making it all the way through the movie, and being, like one of the main, heroes of the story, So he was like shocked that I was giving him that opportunity. And I'm like, well, you deserve it, man. You were great in them other movies. I know you can handle these. So
he was my favorite character. He was my favorite character by far.
Right.
I love
He's
that
a lot
character.
of people's favorite character in that movie just because of how, he just, he exudes so much likability, with his character. You just immediately, he's a snarky smartass at certain moments in that film, but it's a snarky smartass that you like, So
there's
and then there's
performances.
There's the moment with his daughter. The moments with his daughter, are the moments that make you fully feel for the character. You fully gravitate toward him and realize this guy is a great guy, and everything. He's a family guy, and he actually cares about his daughter, and everything, and stuff, And he's a good partner to Damien Cruz. He ends up becoming, he ends up showing Damien Cruz that he's a really good detective. He's a good guy to back you up and have your back. So
there was four performances in the movie that I absolutely loved. His was obviously one of them, and Amy Lynn Woodall as Jacqueline Potts was another one, or Jacqueline Price. I'm sorry, Jacqueline Price was another one, and Ryan Ryan, I want to say his name right, Humeyer
Ryan
as
Heimeier.
Vlad. Humeyer was
Yeah,
great as Vlad. He was awesome
yeah,
as Vlad.
yeah. He stood out. I mean, he had played in an episode of the Evil Dead series prior to that, um, and I didn't know how he was going to play it. You know, we had already cast him as Vlad, but I didn't know how he was going to play it because I'd never seen him do it, and I only knew him for playing this character in The Unseen, the episode of Evil Deeds, and so I did not know how he was going to pull this off. And then the other person that had to cast in there was Hanley Baker, and she was in the same episode with him, with The Unseen, alongside Buddy. So they have good chemistry. I knew that, but whenever he came on set as Vlad and did his first scenes, doing his accent as Vlad is just, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna work as a character. He's badass. I love him. Yeah. He's just so suave, so debonair as a character that you're just like, wow, he's badass. You know, and that's all because
Yeah.
of Ryan. How I mean, he's got that long haired look, that works for the character, and him having that accent that he gives the character that he maintains through the whole movie. I hate when actors play characters. They try to do an accent, and then an American accent comes out at certain points in it. Like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Kevin Costner. Trying to do a British accent in there, and all of a sudden throws in American in certain points. I mean, that throws the whole thing off. And that was the thing I wanted to make sure. Whenever he's playing Vlad, that he always maintained that and stayed. In that character, and he did. It was so cool because every time he did it, every time he spoke, the character spoke with that dialect, and it was just perfect. Uh, and then, like I said, Hanley coming in and playing Nicole, uh, she was awesome. Uh, and like I said, I love working on both, films like Then the Night Comes and Dark Knight, because I didn't play a role. So I got to focus fully on putting this thing together and setting up the shots how I wanted them, getting those angles that I wanted, all of that, so that's why that movie is pretty important to me as a film. Um, we actually got, which was awesome. We actually got to shoot at Sensations. Uh, in the
I was gonna bring that
actual
up.
in the actual because we did have Sensations was featured in Indestructible, but it was only the exterior. The interiors of the strip club in Indestructible was not as Sensations, because I didn't know if they were going to be okay with me shooting there or not. So I chose not to ask them first, and we shot it someplace else. We shot the interior someplace else, and then we went to them and asked them if it would be all right if we shot the outside for the establishing shots of the building. And to our surprise, they actually said, "Oh yeah, you can shoot inside." I was like, "Shoot, too late." So when it came time for us to do Dark Knight, I was like, I got to give them a call and find out, see what if that still stands, because you don't know, there might have been new management in between those films, and everything. Somebody might not be okay with it now. So I called them, talked to them, told them about it. They contacted who needed to get back with me. They got back with me, and they were like, "Yeah, we're fine with it. When do you want to do it?" So we set it up. We got the extras there, which was the time whenever you
Yeah.
were wanting to do it, but couldn't. But
I think you even offered me the homeless guy role at one point too.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I guess after Buddy,
I
but
did. I did. Yep. But yeah, the that we got the extras, and all the extras were great. We actually got to shoot in there. First time we shot in there, it was after hours, basically, kind of, where nobody was really in there for a lot of the scenes with Amy Lynn, in there. The scenes with basically Amy Lynn and Ryan and any of the other characters like the bartender and stuff like that. That was shot completely after most of their dancers had already left. So we asked them after that, after we finished shooting those scenes, we asked them if it would be okay if we came in during hours, and got some shots of the girls on stage for insert shots. They were great. They came back and said, "Yeah, sure," And we went in. A lot of the girls, 3 of them, I believe, to be exact, 3 of the girls got to have pretty prominent little parts in there in that strip club scene, getting to be shown on dancing on the stage, during little moments in there, So I think we only had one real. I think we only had one real dancer that was actually there when we were there when it was after hours that was available, and that's the only one you actually see. And she wasn't there. She actually wasn't there when we shot these other scenes. That girl wasn't. So it made it look like we had 4 different dancers plus Amy Lynn's character who's playing a dancer as well. So it made it look like that place has a packed place with a bunch of dancers there.
That's what one of the things I like about the movie. I'm being honest, being a guy, even though I'm married, but I can still look. There's a bunch of beautiful women in that movie. It's not a love story like some vampire movies, but it's a very sexy movie. There's a lot of sex, if not sex. There's a couple of sex scenes, but there's also just a lot of sexiness, just a lot of good-looking women, topless or whatever. And so it makes it feel like a vampire movie without having to go overboard and be a love story, which is one of the things I liked about it. It wasn't a love story, but it was still a very sexy movie with a lot of violence and blood and gore. And so that's why I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, and Ryan as the vampire, he's so seductive and cool as Vlad that you can totally see, and those are his real eyes, by the way, those blue eyes that he has that are so seductive and awesome on camera. I mean, those were his real eyes. I mean, you can actually see him being this vampire and being so seductive toward these women to where you could buy into them going, "Oh wow, they fell for him."
Right.
Because he's totally believable in that, the way he portrayed it, and everything. So, the Amy character, like I said, the daughter to Freeman, Amy, scenes with Amy Lynn, and great little actress, playing Amy. She came down she isn't from Arkansas, and she came in just to shoot for that, and she's from Alabama, actually. and she came in, traveled in with her mom and dad, of course, because we don't make these films with a little girl on the set without their parents' permission,
Right.
especially in
Especially
a
in this
freaking
movie.
vampire film.
Yeah.
So she showed up. I mean, she was so good in that role, and her only role before that, she wasn't really playing a role. She was a stand-in in some of the scenes for Indestructible Reckoning and No Place to Hide for Lauren, character of Stephanie. There's quite a few scenes of Lauren in that film, in those films, that you would think it's Lauren, but it's her instead, in there. And she was so good in that film. I mean, it reminded me of Danielle Harris, how good she was in the Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. This young actress with all this immense talent, and just great actor, in there, just portrays the role so good, likable, you know. I just loved working with her. I loved working with Lauren as well, on the Indestructible films. The talent that we have here in Arkansas now on these films is just so awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's we don't get credit in this state for much of anything, but we are just watching. I mean, not obviously, I watch all of your movies. There's a couple other
Mm-hmm.
people whose movies I'm really into that I watch as well, and some of the actors kind of are all in all the movies, but then there's some people in other movies or in your movies, and I don't see anything else, and I'm like, how are they not in anything else? Because they're so good, they're so
Mm-hmm.
talented, and the directors in the state too. I'm going to blow a little smoke up your ass here for a second, but whatever. You know, you're really good. Uh, there's other directors in the state. Jason Pitts is really good. So there's
Mm-hmm.
talent in this state that nobody seems to ever want to give us credit for, but not just in
Mm-hmm.
front of the camera, but behind the camera too.
Yeah, yeah, you know, and yeah. Like I said, I did bring in an actress from Alabama to play in that. Um, I believe, initially, um, one of those roles, there was two young roles in Dark Knight. Um, there was the role of Amy Freeman, which, like I said, like I've already mentioned, Kendall Hamilton played her, and she's, like I said, she's an actress from Alabama, and uh, she's just so good in that role. But originally, Lauren was originally supposed to have been playing the character of Tori Peterson uh, in there, and the character was written as younger originally, I mean, to match Lauren. She was written as around 11, 12 years old. Um, and that's why Vlad kind of freaks out whenever he's going after his potential brides and he sees on the list that, wait a minute, this girl's 12 years old. What's going on? Sophie, what are you doing? My bride can't be 12 years old. So, and of course, that character becomes his surrogate daughter, But we eventually, Lauren could not do it. She had other obligations and other things that she was doing. So we had to go with a different actress. And originally, we were going to try and stick with the same age, around like 11 or 12 years old as the character, similar to what Amy was, And eventually, we kind of changed the character around, made the character like I think we made her like 15 or 16 as a character, because on the film No Place to Hide, I met Taylor Bell. She played the young cop in there in the one scene. And she, to me, looked like, even though she's in her 20s, I figured she looks young enough she could pull this off and play this 15, 16-year-old girl. You know, she's smaller framed, and that's the same way with Danielle Harris when she originally played, Jamie Lloyd. She was older than what her character was supposed to have been, to begin with, when she played it. But Danielle Harris looks so young, it's she could play young, and that's the way Taylor was. Taylor came in to play that role as Tori, and she just, like a lot of these actors and actresses in this movie, I mean, they just knocked it out of the park. I mean, I couldn't be prouder of the casts that we've had for these films. Some of these people getting to come back and play these other different roles. I mean, playing Holly Petty had played Then the Night Comes, and played an episode of Evil Deeds with the Forgive Me Father. She ended up playing in Dark Knight as the character of Rena Woodson, and she, she was normally known for her blonde hair in all of her past roles. She even played a small role in Afterlife, if you remember, playing the passenger in the car that, ends up getting killed by Kirby. And she's got the blonde hair there. She's always got the blonde hair. That kind of platinum blonde hair look that she had in Then the Night Comes, Afterlife, and the Forgive Me Father episode of Evil Deeds. Well, when she showed up for Dark Knight, she asked me, well, first she asked me, what do you want me to do for the character? Do you want me to go with a different hair color? I was like, would you? Because that would be cool, because we haven't seen you with different hair color, or anything like that. We've always seen you as blonde, So she said, yeah. So she went with this really cool looking red hair that she had as the character of Rena. And, I know you probably watched that movie and didn't even realize that was her because of how different she looked. I mean, because she looked so different, with that red hair over what she did with blonde hair, So it really made her feel like a different, actress in there, and she played her damn good as usual. Holly always does well. I mean, there's so many people here in Arkansas that we got. We've already mentioned Amy Lynn Woodall, C.J. Bernard. We got Ashley Brewer, is a kick-ass actress here. Temery Morgan, we have her. I mean, I've already mentioned Taylor Bell, Emmy Mullen. I mean, there's so many great actors and actresses. Most of them I mentioned. Yeah. I've already mentioned Buddy and Dwayne and Rick. Yeah, and of course Ryan Highmeyer. So I'm not just going women. Just,
I was actually going to bring Ashley up because one of the next three movies we're going to cover, she's prominently in all three of them. And we're going to talk about the Evil Deeds series for a little bit too, and she's in a few episodes of that. But this was the first movie of yours that I remember seeing her in. If she was in anything before this, it slipped my mind. But this was the first movie I remember seeing her.
Yeah, so this Dark Knight was her introduction to Dark Knight films. Ironically, Dark Knight was her introduction. And hell, and it was a small role. When she played the little biker chick, repairing bikes and stuff. She's the tough girl and everything. Victoria Young playing that character in here. And she just immediately to me, she impressed me, with her acting. And I'd never worked with her before. And I immediately was like, I really want to work with her some more. I think she's really talented, you know, and like you said, a lot of these people don't get enough chances in other films and stuff. Don't get cast a lot. So uh, my next film was Regina I Am, which again I feel really good about that film because it was a big departure from anything we've done in the past. I mean, yes, we did slasher films, and we did a vampire film now, Dark Knight, and then we had done revenge films, with Mark of Death, uh, but we had never went to the basically Disney style, kid friendly kind of film, before. And that's what Regina I Am was. It was a film that I had to write with no bad language, no sexual situations, no, nothing like I had, done before. It was just a fun, kid friendly kind of, Disney style film uh, about, a genius inventor who creates, a robot and makes it look like a female, and names her Regina. Hanley Baker.
It's weird science. It's a modern day weird science.
But yeah, Hanley Baker playing Regina. She was she was so good in that role. She eventually, and she wasn't even the first choice we had in that role. Our original Regina in there that we were going to have in that film was, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you and told you this, so this might be news to you. But our first Regina that I had ever cast for that film was going to be Olivia Disney.
No, you never mentioned that. I didn't know that.
So, but she had other commitments that she had to do, that she wasn't going to be able to play that role. It was too big of a role for her to be able to play. So I had to go with somebody else. So I gave it to Hanley, and I can't regret my decision either, because Hanley just played the role awesome, and we still got Olivia in there, playing my character's best friend, Kalyani, so we still had Olivia Disney in the film. She just wasn't playing the lead, That's another film that had an amazing, talented cast. We had the return of Ryan Highmeyer, this time playing not playing the evil vampire, but playing, a conniving best friend to my character that, is trying to, try and get me to use my expert skills in making things for military. This genius inventor, and he's wanting to use his talents for military, military contracting, is what he works in. So he just played that role totally different than what he played Vlad. There's no confusing Matthew Hudson with Vlad. No. He was totally different, in there. Same way with Ashley. Ashley's playing my, ex-girlfriend character of Rhea Luna, and she was so good in there. You know, she the now I guess one of the most famous scenes in this whole movie is that karaoke scene uh, where everybody goes out to karaoke, and Regina is challenged to a karaoke competition with Rhea, and it's so cool how you get Ashley's character is one way before that, and after that sequence, her character, she's almost a character that you're supposed to hate prior to that. You don't really like her because she's playing kind of bitchy, stuck up, snobby character, and everything. And, after that competition, it kind of humanizes her. And we get to see her the true side to her personality, when she's not playing this tough act that she was doing, earlier in the story, and everything. That's just showing the talent of Ashley as an actress. She was so good in that role. But we had, like I said, Hanley, Olivia. You had Susan Meek playing my mother in there. Sharon Kent, she was so great. She was awesome. Mercedes Shaw was playing my older sister, Aisha. She was awesome. An actress who's, so far she's only worked with one time. She was so good. Alison Breyer was playing Maggie Kent, my younger sister in there.
The nice one.
The nice one. The nice one. And you get them when they did this the karaoke scene. Most people are contacting me about that. They're like, I love this karaoke scene. You all sang so awesome in that scene. I'm like, okay.
It was weird because you told me you shot that at Hard Riders, yeah. Trying to think of the name. We do wrestling show. We had done wrestling shows there. So I was part of the company that did the shows there, and the first time I saw the movie, I'm like, God, that place looks really familiar. And then so I messaged you and I said, where did you shoot this at? And you told me, and I'm like, oh, because every time I'm in there, there's a wrestling ring there. So the wrestling ring not being there just threw me off. But
right.
But the karaoke scene was I was going to bring that up anyway. That was my favorite scene. That was my favorite scene too, because
it's a lot of
at least two of them
seems to be a lot of people's favorite. Yeah, it is.
At least two of the songs I really like. I have to admit, Unchained Melody or whatever the song is that Regina sings. I'm not a big fan of the song. Not that she didn't do great singing it. I'm just not a big fan of the song. But I love Hit Me With Your Best Shot. And I like the song that you did too before the competition when you were up there singing. So just because I'm such a big music fan, that's probably my favorite scene. And I recognize some people, like a young lady named Tara that I'm become good friends with. Was one of the girls sitting in the crowd with you guys. And of course then you had Ashley, and then you had, so I at least either knew all of you or knew of all of you. And it was a great scene. It was a lot of fun because I love the music anyway.
And then we had CJ playing a cameo, playing the DJ at the karaoke club. He's up there, and he's unmistakable. He wears a mask the whole time, so all you see is just his eyes for most of it. So but his voice is unmistakable. When he goes up to the stage to introduce the next singer, that's CJ just because of his voice. But
I noticed that a lot of your movies and stuff, that the idea of hypnotizing comes up in a lot of them. What got you so interested in hypnotizing that you put it in a lot of your movies?
Well, because Regina does have the the doctor, Dr. Wheeler. Ryan Abbott's character, Dr. Wheeler. He's uses a crystal, and it's in a comical way in that,
Right.
Dark Knight
Right.
is more. In Dark Knight, it's more, it's you expect it in a vampire movie, I mean, unless you're so used to this Twilight era of vampire movies, which are not vampire movies to me, you know.
No.
To me, a vampire movie is not a vampire movie if your main vampire cannot hypnotize. That is a vampire's ability. If you're got a lead vampire in a movie, he should have that ability. That's part of what he is. So that's just part of a vampire movie. I had to have that in there. But yeah, certain. It just for like Evil Deeds episodes and everything, it makes for a really great villain in there for a villain to, like we have an episode, called Hugo, where the guy comes up with the device that he can use to hypnotize, and he wants to use it on women to exploit them. So he tries it out on his new neighbor, and it backfires on him. And I always like to put that in there, that even though they're using these kind of abilities, it usually backfires on the user using, like it did on Hugo, like it did on, there's another episode, Zeller the Great was another one that, he finds the crystal, he uses it to try and get what he wants, and ends up backfiring on him, so, but yeah, and eventually we got other movies that will have similar themes to that, but I don't know. I guess it's started with movies, like the old Universal horror movies and everything, and the Hammer classic horror movies with Christopher Lee and everything. Because most of those movies you have, like the older Universal movies, you had Dracula. I mean, Bela Lugosi was a very hypnotic villain. Even the first Mummy with Boris Karloff, he had like hypnotic powers that he uses on the main girl. So and a lot of the other ones, like I said, the Hammer films. Christopher Lee's Count Dracula is very hypnotic in those films. You have his other character that he played in those films, Rasputin, the Mad Monk. In that film, he's a very hypnotic. And in history, that character was like that, so that made sense for that to be like that. And then, of course, another Christopher Lee movie that I was a big fan of growing up was the Fu Manchu movies that Christopher Lee did. Whereas he's a very hypnotic villain as well. So I guess, growing up with a lot of those kind of things, I guess I really like those kind of villains. They really, I really kind of, I think that those villains are the most charismatic and most badass to have in a film, The more hypnotic a villain is, the more intriguing he is, or she, in the case of Queen Cobra. Miss Queen Cobra, I know we're about to move to that, right?
That's right. Yep. That's the next movie.
So, yeah, and Queen Cobra she's very hypnotic, as a villain, and I use the term villain in Vaishnavi's case very loosely.
Very loosely, yeah.
Yes, because she's technically she's supposed to be the villain of the film, but the way Olivia plays her, she makes you very much like her. She's very likable, as the character. Even though she makes her mysterious and dark, she still is. She's not doing anything wrong. She's not an evil character in there. So, and that's another thing about that one. Even though it's supernatural and everything, it's not a horror film. It's more of a suspense thriller. You know, um, in there, it's not a slasher. It's not a. Uh, I guess you could consider it kind of a revenge film. Because she does go after for revenge in it and everything. But Olivia Disney, like I said, she already played in Regina as Kalyani. Uh, so when I offered her the role of Vaishnavi, she was really excited to bring that character to life, just because she could do like Ryan Heimeyer did as Vlad. You give the character this accent. You actually make people believe that this character is from this other country. Whereas Ryan Heimeyer made you believe that he was truly a Romanian vampire. She truly makes you believe that she is an Indian, a Hindi Indian, not a Native American. But she truly makes you believe that she really is of Indian descent, with her character playing her. Not only that, but she ended up playing another Indian character with Mohini in the film as well. So she plays basically dual roles, playing both of those characters, and she knocks it out of the park just as usual. She's just an awesome actress. And that one's another one that I mean, we had such an amazing cast in that film. C.J. Bernard again. you got him back in there. You had, Ashley, Graham Vowell, who previously had only worked with us on Dark Knight, playing the Charlie character. He was only in basically 2 scenes in Dark Knight, and he was playing the character of Calvin, the character that everybody hates.
Yeah.
I mean, and he does so well. I mean, he was likable as Charlie, in Dark Knight. You didn't hate him as Charlie in Dark Knight, but you totally hate Graham when he's playing Calvin in there, because he's such a dick character, and he does so many, bad things that cause all the shit to happen. He's the reason everything happens in the film. And if it wasn't for Graham's great performance, that film wouldn't have worked. I mean, as good as Olivia is as Vaishnavi, if Graham wasn't as good as he was as Calvin, it wouldn't have mattered. Am I right?
Agree. Yeah, no, I agree.
And then
because
we have
he's the only one. He's the only one in that movie that you want to see get killed so bad. Like you want to see him killed. And the rest of them, they did something stupid. They were involved in something awful, and none of the main characters, to me, in that movie are 100% likable. There is something about each woman.
There's one more that's as equally hated, though, as
Tamara Morgan.
Yeah, Tamara Morgan is Raoul. Yeah, she is another one that causes a lot of the damage that happens in that film, and it's all her fault. It's between her and Calvin. They caused the whole damn thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, if she doesn't steal the whatever it was she stole, then they don't go back. They don't go back.
Right.
They don't see. They don't see the Olivia Disney and her boyfriend kissing,
right.
And then the whole thing doesn't happen. So we can hate Graham Vowell's character all we want to, but if Tamara Morgan's character doesn't steal that thing, none of it happens because they don't.
Exactly. I mean, the characters of Johnny Sanchez as Roy Burns and Ashley Brewer's Jackie Burns, those are the two that you're focusing on most, and they're not the bad guys. They're more of the likable ones.
Right.
And everything. And so is Sebastian Ostel as AJ. He's not doing anything wrong. Neither is C.J. Bernard's character, Roger. I mean, those characters are they're just along for the ride, and they didn't try to stop it, so they're guilty of that. But they're not really guilty of, so much guilty that you really want Vaishnavi to kill them. Yeah. So when she does kill, when she does kill a few of them, I'm not gonna say which ones. But when she does kill any of them, you kind of feel for some of them, more than you do Calvin or Raul. Those two characters, you're just like, oh yeah, they deserve it.
Let's talk for a couple of minutes about your character, because you have you mentioned him earlier. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but you have kind of a small role, but a very important role.
Yeah, he's a friend of Roger, and I wanted like I said, I wanted that character to be small so that I could more focus on directing and not focus as much on acting so much. And I wrote the character just to be more of a mysterious character, similar to a Van Helsing.
Right.
I wanted the characters, because initially the characters of Roy and Jackie, Johnny Sanchez and Ashley Brewer, go to Rick Viper's character of Professor Khan, who he knew from college and everything. They go to him because he knew about that kind of stuff, and turns out he's not so much help. Professor Khan is not as much help as what Roger's friend that he knows is, who is the expert on anything supernatural. The guy is basically, like I said, he's basically like Reese is basically like our version of Van Helsing. He knows all about supernatural things. He's hunted down supernatural creatures. He's brought them to justice. He's brought them down or taken care of them. So he's not a beginner in what he's doing. So whenever they meet him, you immediately know that he knows his shit, and that they should be listening to him, which unfortunately, a lot of these characters do not listen to Reese, and that leads to even more bad stuff happening, But yeah, the character, I love doing that character because I did a British accent for him. And that was just fun to stay consistent with that character, just like I've asked everyone else that's played a character with an accent. Like I wanted Ryan Heimeyer to stay consistent with his Romanian. I wanted Olivia to stay consistent with her Indian accent. So I had to make sure that I did the British accent consistent throughout all of my scenes. Luckily, like you mentioned, he's a small part of the movie, so I didn't have to focus too much on that, because he's only, I believe, Reese is probably in 4 scenes total in the film.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, something like that.
So I could focus more on the direction, and I didn't have to focus as much on my performance. But whenever I did have to do that, it was cool to have a guy like I said, CJ. I trust him behind the camera, so he was the one setting up shots and basically filming most of the shots with me as Reese in there and making sure my shots look good and CJ's a great cameraman. You know, he knows what he's doing behind the camera. Uh, so, yeah, me playing that. And the thing I wanted from that character was to give him sort of a Geralt from The Witcher look. I wanted him to have that mystique, that old, you know, gray, the gray hair, you know, with it tied back, you know, the kind of like almost like the Thor look, but gray hair, similar to what, you know, Henry Cavill has as The Witcher. You know? And that's the look I wanted to go for with him, because I just figured that look will look like a, you know, badass old British character, you know.
Right.
And so, yeah, when he first meets them, they don't make a very good impression.
They're assholes.
Yeah, and he's not very happy with him. He's kind of pissed. so in his numerous appearances later, he's not the sweetest of disposition kind of a guy. Not that he was in the first place to begin with, but hell, he gets worse as the movie goes on. You know, he becomes more tough, more mean toward the characters. You know, and it was hard because I love Ashley as an actress, and I love her as a person behind the scenes. You know, so there's a scene where I'm acting with her in that film where I'm talking toward her, being mean toward her, and then I go to turn to walk away, and she goes to grab my arm and be like, "Please help us," and I have to go pull my arm back and give her this forceful look, and you know, and the way she acted in the scene, you know, and the way I pull back and the way I do the, you know, intense look toward her. I mean, I know she's just acting, but I mean, you can swear that she was really scared to death of me when I pulled her, when I jerked back and everything. She's so good as an actress, you know, that you know. But I do know one scene that she was definitely shocked in. She wasn't on camera at the time. She was just on set, but it was the scene when Rick Viper's character of Professor Khan, he has been manipulated by Ashnavi, and he thinks, you know, that Roy and Jackie have conned him, you know, and that this Ashnavi thing that they took the pictures of, it's all fake, you know. So he's freaking out on the phone, and he does this whole screaming into the phone against, you know, Johnny's Roy character, and he does all this, slams the phone down into the thing, and just throws it across the room. The phone, he just slaps the phone across the room. None of it is in the script. None of this was planned. And when he does this, I'm filming. I go, cut! That was great. And I look back at Ashley, and Ashley's like, I was like, oh. And Rick is like, Ashley, did I scare you? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. So I know for sure that kind of threw her when he did that. She was not expecting him to do that, you know. But yeah, having a great cast like that on a film like Queen Cobra, I mean, it just one great actor right after another in that film, you know. And then of course, you had your moment in the sun when C.J. Bernard's character gets attacked by Olivia's Vaishnavi, and he gets injured trying to escape her, and you and your girlfriend character just happen to be walking along and find him and rescue him, basically, for the time being.
Yeah, for the time being, rescue him, and then he gets killed later. But we did our job. We did our part.
But yeah,
So
you showed up. Yeah, that's the day you showed up. You showed up. Misty shows up playing your girlfriend that's supposed to be walking with you and everything when you find him. And it's the first time you two have ever met, too, to my knowledge.
yeah, yeah.
And and you didn't know it at the time, but she had already played. And I don't think you knew that she played in the Indestructible films, did you? At that point?
No, I didn't. Not at that time. You
I think
told me later on.
I think at that point you had only seen Indestructible and Afterlife, right? You had not seen.
I'd seen.
You had not
Sorry.
seen Reckoning.
I had seen one and two. I had seen one and two. I had not seen the rest.
Yeah, you had seen Reckoning and No Place to Hide, so you didn't get to see Misty's role in Reckoning that she played in there. And of course, you hadn't seen Regina I Am, so you didn't get to see her little role as the secretary in there to the doctor, where she played in that either. So, yeah, prior to Queen Cobra, yeah, she had quite a few roles that you didn't even know about before that. You were like, hey, I'm working alongside a veteran of Dark Knight films.
No, you told me, God, later that night, like you said earlier, we shot for like 10 minutes and talked for like 2 hours afterwards. So just me and you just hanging out talking afterwards. But the next movie you did, which is actually the last movie you've done, I think, is Snowy Night the last movie you shot at this point?
Right, yeah. Yeah.
So you go from this pretty good sized cast in Queen Cobra. I mean, there's a lot of actors in that movie to like 5 of you in Snowy Night. Like there's the 4 of you and then your next door neighbor. And that's all you see through the whole movie.
Right. Yes. It made sense with the storyline because that story wasn't even a planned film. We had the snowstorm last year. We had like around here, I don't know how it was everywhere else in Arkansas, but around here we got a good probably 8 inches of snow the first time it snowed, and then the next time it snowed, we got another good 5 inches. So we had quite a bit of freaking snow, and I was like, man, this looks great. We don't get this a lot here, I'm going to shoot a movie with this, So I went out, shot all the snow footage that I could outside, getting different areas, different spots outside, because the later scenes it didn't really even have to be snowy, outside for interior shots, I just wanted to make sure that all those exterior shots, we get our people over here that need to be in those scenes with the snow, and we get those scenes done. And then we have a very unique film where it's shot, kind of like The Shining. The snow all around us, And ironically, I'm not going to say who anybody is, the killer or anything, but ironically, you noted, and even Buddy noted, the other actor in the movie, Buddy Campbell, who played in the movie. The ending even has a scene that's kind of the reverse of Shining. In The Shining, the killer, Jack Torrance's character, is chasing Wendy up the stairs. In Snowy Night, we have the killer coming down the stairs. So we kind of flip that around.
That was a movie that I was over at your house one night, and you were just like, "Hey, you want to watch it?" And I'm like, "Well, hell yeah, I want to watch it." So we just sit down and
Right?
watch. We just sit down and watch the whole thing, and I was like, you know, you always ask me after I watch a movie where it ranks in the other movies, and the more I've thought about it as times went on, Snowy Nights, it's the Indestructible movies. The whole series is still number one. Snowy Night
Uh-huh.
probably jumped up to number two, and that was because of
Yeah.
just the claustrophobic aspect of it. You're all locked in this house, and it's
Mm-hmm.
this massive snowstorm outside. You can't go anywhere. I mean, it ain't like
And the
you can get
there's a killer amongst us that's
yeah,
killing
and
us
there's a
all
killer
one
amongst
by
you,
one. Yeah. Yeah.
and you don't know who to trust. There's only four of you in the house, but you're all four turning on each other because one of you's got to be the killer.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
so it was, yeah, the movie was awesome. And of course, I told you 100 times, I think Ashley Brewer is amazing. So she's in the
Mm-hmm.
movie, you're in the movie, Buddy Campbell's in the movie, and I can't remember the lady that plays his wife, but she was great in it too.
Shauna,
Um,
Shauna,
Shauna, yeah,
Shauna,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, Shauna Tough. That was the first time I got to work with her, and later on in the Evil Deeds series, I mean, she has actually been my first female director that directed an episode. She directed the Hugo episode of Evil Deeds, yeah, which
And
was
does he not play a news reporter in one of the episodes too,
yeah,
or like
yeah.
a
She
TV
she
reporter?
yeah yeah she played that role, and she played a role in the Hello episode as well. Um, but yeah, she didn't even play a role in Hugo, but she directed the whole thing. It was like, yeah, she did an amazing job on that too. So she just like, and that's one of the things I wanted to, because I offered it to her because I was like, I really want to show that we are not, Dark Knight films. It doesn't have to be always a guy directing, you know, these films. You know, these females are good directors too. I mean, like I said, I've already mentioned Bailey Freeman is a good camera person.
Mm-hmm.
If she wanted to, I would bring her in and I would let her direct the freaking movie. I trust her that well, behind the camera. She is good. She is great. Uh, there's a lot of these women that have worked with me on these films that not just to act, not just as actors and everything, but I mean, some of them are just so good behind the camera, as well. They don't get enough credit for that. So as soon as I got the chance to, I asked Shauna after I met her on Snowy Night. She was so good in that, playing, Buddy's wife, as you mentioned. I mean, she was so good as Carol um, that I was like, "Hey, would you be interested in directing an episode of Evil Deeds?" And to my surprise, she came back and she said, "Yes, I'd love to." Yeah. So she she ended up directing that episode, and she did an awesome job on it. She was so great on that episode. Um, but yeah, Amy Lynn, she's wanting to direct an episode for season 2. Um, so I mean, this is going forward. I mean, I would love to have uh, one of these awesome females uh, direct one of our features if they wanted to. You know, not just I'm not limiting them directing for Dark Knight films just to uh, the TV series. I want to see them. I want to see what they can do. I want them to fully be able to show that they can, direct a feature film. And everything. And I'll give them that opportunity if they want to. So, like I said, I would go to Bailey Freeman. I would go to Shauna Toft. I would go to any of these. Amy Lynn Woodall. I would go to any of these and ask them if they wanted to do it. I would let them direct a full film for me. Not just episodes of the series. So I guess now we're on the series.
Yeah, Yeah, we're on Evil Deeds the series. It's I've seen all 16 episodes, and
Uh-huh.
some I enjoyed more than others. My favorite is Heinous Hannah. I had it all written down, like which ones you directed, but you were whether
Uh-huh.
you directed them or not, you were involved in every single episode, right? I mean, in some capacity, editing or
Producer
something. You were,
producer wise or editing wise,
yeah.
yeah. Yep.
What are some of your favorite episodes of the ones you've done so far?
The ones that I directed, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably the best, my favorite one that I directed was probably Heinous Hannah. Uh, Seconded by Rattlesnake Ricky. Because, I mean, both of those, and ironically, it's basically the opener and, almost the end. The Hello was the final episode of season one. But Heinous Hannah was second to the last episode, so it's almost like they bookended each other, Like one of my favorite episodes that I directed, was originally Rattlesnake Ricky, and then later on, I ended up directing Heinous Hannah, which I wasn't supposed to be directing that one. Rick Viper directed the episode, The Spiral, and he was scheduled to direct Heinous Hannah. And I was helping him on it to, shoot some stuff like second unit kind of stuff for him to help him out. And eventually, it turned out, he wasn't going to be able to do it. So I ended up, saying, well, okay, well, I'm going to direct it myself. Now, the initial script, I was not a big fan of the ending. So I said, if I'm directing this, I'm going to change that ending. Yeah. So I tweaked it, and fixed what I thought was weak about that. The rest of the episode was great. The ending was kind of just, it fell short, So I wanted it to end strong if I was going to direct it. So we had some really great special effects work in Heinous Hannah. That's another reason why I really enjoyed that episode. The effects guy that did the effects on it was so, and I'm not talking physical effects. I'm talking digital. I mean, he did all this stuff digitally. His name is DC Bailey. DC Bailey was our visual effects guy. I mean, he did great scenes like, I'm not going to say the character, I'm not going to say who gets it. He did a special effects scene for a scene in which Heinous Hannah takes the machete and lops off a fucking character's head on screen. I mean, it literally looks like that character loses their head right there on screen. There was no trick effects, nothing to it. It looks real. It looks like she really lopped off this person's head.
It was a great scene.
So, and I'm like, I'm so grateful to him for those effects. Those are great, such great effects that he did in there. Not only that one, there's another scene. I'm not gonna say who gets it because you need to watch this series. But another character gets. I mean, Hannah. I will say Hannah because everybody knows Hannah's the freaking killer. This is not a mystery. The episode's called Heinous Hannah. We already know Ashley's the killer in this thing. So, but I mean, she takes this rock and she smashes this character right into the face with this rock and just smashes the character's face into mush. And the effects that, I mean, that DC did on this was just off the charts. I mean, it doesn't look like visual effects. It looks like physical effects. You know,
Let's talk
that's how
about this.
good.
We've talked about Ashley before, but this was the performance for
Uh-huh.
me that just like cemented her as my favorite actress in the whole Dark Knight Films universe. Like, and every actress you put in any movie has been great, but as heinous
Mm-hmm.
Hannah, Ashley was just, she would go from being so cute and almost innocent looking at times to just like in the look of her eyes, and just the snap of a finger, just going
Uh-huh.
absolutely batshit crazy and just looking like a
Mm-hmm.
complete lunatic. But there's a scene, I don't want
Yeah.
to say what she said, but she's walking down the street and she's mumbling under her breath how mad she is about something that had just happened. And it was almost kind of
Uh-huh.
cute and funny. And then you remember, because she seems like this little ticked off little angry dog, and you
Right.
can't figure out
Right.
why.
Right.
I mean, she's just God, stupid son of a. I mean, I don't want to say what happened, but it was hilarious. And then a
Uh-huh.
few
Right.
seconds later, she's in this kick-ass fight scene with one of the characters, and so it
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
like she snaps on the dime in that show.
Yeah. She was so good in that. It's the same way. And you see parts of that before Hannah happened. Before we did Hannah, you saw elements of that in you know Queen Cobra, Snowy Night. That
Mm.
she could pull that off. You saw elements of that in both of those other films that she could pull that off. Dark Knight, Queen Cobra, all of them set up that to where you see it. And me as a director, working on these films and working with her, I knew what she could accomplish because I directed her, and I saw on screen what she did in those films, and I was like, I know she can pull this off. So when when she was cast as Hannah, I was like, yeah, I know she can pull this off. I know she can do this. This role is hers. And of course, sent her the script, and she looked at it. And she was like, initially, we're like, hopefully she's going to be interested. I know she can handle it. I know she can do it. I might have to tell her, let her know that, you can do this. You can do this. Come on, do it. I didn't even have to do that. Sent her the script. She read the script. She came back and said, "Oh, I'm so in for this movie. I want to do this." uh, so yeah, she's so awesome.
There's
I
a
love how
great line, and I wanted to bring it up because it's one of my favorite lines of anything you've ever done, and it was the U.S. Marshals line, the San Gerard line was just
Yeah.
because The Fugitive and U.S. Marshals, two of my favorite movies ever. I love both those movies. And then there's that scene where the two cops are out searching for Hannah, and that's as far as we'll go. But they're out searching for Hannah, and one of them mentions something about maybe we should get backup, and the other cop
Yeah.
goes, "Fuck," or Gerard and his boys are on their way, and your character's like, "Fuck Gerard and his boys. I'm not letting them get Hannah." And it was just you told me about the line before I saw it, but it was still just a hilarious, like, awesome little in joke to the fugitive.
Yeah, it's basically like, oh wow, Heinous Hannah exists in the same universe as what the Fugitive and U.S. Marshals guys. That's fun little things that you could do in the films. It's like I have this in connection in Indestructible. I don't know if you noticed that, but I have this in connection to Indestructible with Roadhouse.
No, I don't think I've really thought about it.
Everyone's at the party for Sasha, and they keep getting texts on their phone that a certain person is throwing a party, and it ends up being Ben Gazzara's character from Roadhouse.
I never got that. Yeah, I never.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you go back and watch that, you get you'll notice it because I mean we're sitting there like have you been to his parties and in Roadhouse, Ben Gazzara's character, you see him always throwing parties and being lavish in his mansion little place where he lives, where he's running the town and shit. So it's like, having him supposedly in the same universe as Indestructible stealing party goers at Sasha's party so they can go to his mansion to hang out there. Just throwing in little references to stuff like that. That's just fun stuff to do. But yeah, but I always want to do something like that just to, show that something is part of another one's. Even doing it with our own films, because there was one in Then the Night Comes. It was just after The Chameleon Killer and Silent Vengeance. Then the Night Comes was made, and the character of Alex Lindbergh comes in, walking in with Rick's character of Sheriff Hagen alongside Ryan's deputy and everything, and they walk in and they see the dead bodies, and she makes the line, oh, what the hell is this, Acid Falls?
Yeah, okay, I remember that line. Yeah.
Which is the same town that the Chameleon Killer movies take place in, and Hagen's just passes it off really smooth with his line, murder isn't confined to one town. It's like it's so good there, But yeah, John Vasilio is good at that. He likes to write little connections to our other Dark Knight films in there, and we'll discuss stuff before he writes stuff, and I'll tell him to add stuff for other films as well. I told him, let's add a reference to Roadhouse and Reckoning, and he's like, okay, I'll write that in there. So, needless to say, that would also mean that Indestructible takes place around 1989. Because Ben Gazzara got killed at the end of Roadhouse, so this has to take place while he's still alive. If you're actually really connecting the universes, So, but
trying to think. I'm pretty sure I saw some cell phones at some point, though. So
yeah. That's what throws that off. That's what throws that off. But it's funny. It's funny just having it in there as a reference, just by the the name of the character being mentioned. Right. Having them go, oh, they look at their phones, and it is cell phones they're looking at. Whenever they get the notification, they're like, oh wow, Brad Wesley's throwing a party. It's like Brad Wesley. That's Ben Gazzara's character in Roadhouse. So some people might be thinking, oh, it must be another Brad Wesley. It can't be.
I'm sure there's more than one out there.
But I said, just throw it in there so that if somebody hears it, they'll be like, oh wow, is this connected to Roadhouse? It's just like in Heinous Hannah throwing in that line there with Gerard, and the U.S. Marshals, I mean, you got somebody will like, oh wow, this takes place in the same universe as The Fugitive.
So
They
we've
have
gotten
the
through all your movies at this point. All your movies, we've talked about Evil Deeds. So what's up next for Matt Spease in Dark Knight Films? You said earlier you had some stuff going that you're going to talk about later.
yeah, we are currently getting ready to do because I've already discussed my hatred for the new Halloweens.
Yeah.
I wasn't really into wanting to do any kind of fan film stuff with Dark Knight Films, but after seeing what is being done with this Halloween, and I love the Halloween franchise, so I hate the fact that these new movies, 2018 and Kills, and probably even Ends. I don't even want to even think about how badly that series is going to end. But I was like, I would like to do a fan film, a feature fan film of my own Halloween 5. This Halloween 5 will pick up after the events of the original Halloween 4. It'll take the the characters of Jamie, Rachel, Dr. Loomis, Meeker, and we will take forward the ending to Halloween 4, which they set up such great potential with that ending, with Jamie presumably stabbing to death her foster mom at the end, and Loomis freaking out, drawing his gun, trying to shoot her, only to be stopped by Meeker,
No.
That ending was so perfect. It was a great setup to take Halloween to this next step. Michael Myers has had a really kick-ass final moment. He gets gunned down by the sheriff and his posse, and is blown down that well, and it collapses and buries his ass. It's over. Michael Myers is dead. Awesome. Great ending to the Michael Myers character. And then you have the setup for the future with Jamie Lloyd becoming the new killer in Halloween. And that is what the premise is of our fan film. We are going to make Jamie Lloyd the main character of the story that is the killer. Thanks to the new technology that we have nowadays, the way the technology has gotten, I mean, we can actually have for fan film only. Unfortunately, you can't do that in real films. But we can have Donald Pleasance looking like he's in the film. We can have Danielle Harris looking like she's playing Jamie Lloyd due to the special effects that we have nowadays. And in this film, I will actually be playing Dr. Samuel Loomis. I don't know who's going to be playing. I've just talked to Buddy Campbell about casting and everything, so he's looking towards some possibilities for casting some people for it and everything. But yeah, that's one of the films we'll be doing. Another one will be another different type of film away from our normal style of films. It won't be horror. It's a more action-oriented film called Cult of Truth, which is about a bounty hunter trying to hunt down a girl and bring her to after she jumps bail. He's trying to bring her back and everything, but she joins a cult. She jumps bail and joins a cult. So the bounty hunter has to go into the with his crew. He has to try and get into the cult's group to try and get the girl out of there, and bring her back to his bail bondswoman to bring make her serve justice. So it's a different type of a film for us for sure in there. And then the other film is called Twisted Revenge, which is a film that follows I mentioned this earlier, and I'm a fan of Christopher Lee. It follows the character of Fu Manchu and his arch nemesis, Nayland Smith. So it's going to be a really cool film. Now, Fu Manchu is trademarked, so this will not be a Fu Manchu film. Fu Manchu will never be named. He shall not be named in the film. But this is very much going to be in the same vein of all those Fu Manchu movies that Christopher Lee had made back in the day. Very same similar style, which again is totally different than anything we've ever done. It's more of a it's almost a little bit of a. It's got a little bit of a James Bond, thing, because you have the great villain, this evil doctor, and he's being pursued by the big Secret Service guy with Nayland Smith trying to pursue him, and everything. So Nayland Smith is basically the James Bond against the villain of similar to a Blofeld or something, from a James Bond kind of thing. So this is kind of us jumping into something like that, So, and of course, you do already know about Twisted Revenge because you are going to be a part of it, playing one of the doctors in there. So, and
pretty
possibly,
excited too.
I'm not going to say you're playing in it, but and possibly you might be able to be playing one of the cult members in Cult of Truth.
I'm down for it. Just let me know.
Right. So, but yeah, those are the three things we got upcoming. Other than new episodes of season 2 of Evil Deeds. Yeah, we are, and we're getting ready now. I mean, like I said, around when it gets close to November/December, January, even February, somewhat. Yeah, I mean, we don't hardly do anything because it's usually too damn cold to do it.
Especially here, yeah.
So it's time of the year that most people are like, yeah, well, we're not going to work on anything for a while. We're just going to kind of go into hibernation for a while until the weather gets a little better. So, and now it's starting to get a little better, so that's where we're moving forward to casting right now for a lot of those films. Buddy Campbell, my great casting director, he's going to be working on that. So we'll see who he can get for us for these new films.
I want to thank you, Matt, for joining me on this first episode. This was a lot of fun. I wasn't really planning on going as long as we did, but we went for almost 3 hours talking about your career. But
well, usually happens when we're talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, you and I'll stay on the phone for 4 or 5 hours at a time. It's no big deal to us.
Right.
But thank you for joining me, man. And I may get you back on again later after you do some of these other movies and talk about those too.
All right, man.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.